Morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be in a room which I'll say is full of one lucky lot. Why? Because last 5 years are the ones where we have seen digital not just growing, but it has become a volcano, which is not just erupting, but it just keeps on erupting every single day, right? That's the kind of disruption that we are seeing. So in a world where we say that every click is a choice and every scroll, really becomes a signal for us today, it becomes very important to understand that what is that line, thin line become, between branding and performance, which we all keep on saying that that's something that drives growth for us. So is there a divide or is there a dynamic dance eventually that we're not able to maybe understand or maybe we have decoded very well? So I have got a great list of panelists with me, and I'm sure they come with a lot of expertise from different backgrounds that they come from. And I would not take a lot of time, but throw my this question towards them to understand. So Rajiv, in this room, nobody better than you to answer my first question. I will ask a very simple question, right? Which was the last ad that you had seen, that you clicked on, and then you bought something? But the question here is that, does that come from a branding campaign or a performance campaign? Is it branding versus performance that leads you as a consumer to click on an ad then buy? Or is it, does that line exist at all? Does that divide exist at all? Where do we stand in terms of branding and performance?
So first I'll answer as a consumer. Uh, you know, uh, like when I'm scrolling through something and I come across something, I would probably click on it and buy it, Like recently I bought bunch of socks, and from a company called Socks Soho. I found those socks very fascinating and, I bought a few pairs, then I bought few more, and then I bought few more. When I started getting emails from the CEO saying that, please rate us and please talk to us, etc. What's wrong with you? Why are you buying so many socks? So that happens, when you do a direct kind of contact. But however, I'll probably not even remember the name tomorrow and probably buy something else when I go to the market. However, this is one impulse purchase probably, which is end of the funnel where you kind of bottom the funnel where you look at something and you buy something. And since the consumer is there, low-hanging fruit, you would target those consumers. Now coming back to a legacy company like ours, which has built trust over 140 years, and we have built brands which have been there in business for hundreds of years, some 50 years, some of them, one of our latest brands, like, which we launched about 20 years, is like almost number 2 oral care brand in the country. So we have all shapes and sizes of brands and all kinds of brands which fit into different parts of the funnel. So what also happens is that, to be in a business like ours, you have to build trust, and trust is not built in a day and through one transaction, And when you're talking about performance, you're essentially talking about transaction. So it's very transactional in nature. But trust is not built on transaction. Trust is built on a long-term value which you create for the brand and long-term value which you give to the consumers. So brand like ours, it has mix of both. One is building long-term trust, building long-term relationship with the consumers, building brands, building brand love. And then, there are other brands as well where you are transacting with consumers much more, because since consumers are there and you can't lose them, so you target to them and you talk to them in their language and you have more transactions. That business is growing very fast. That's growing at about 100% a year. So you can't lose on that. So mix of both.
Yeah, very true. And I'll say that Dabur is a household name that's built on trust and of course legacy that even I have seen like ever since I was a child in my own household, right? Dabur Chyawanprash. We couldn't just escape that. Oh, of course, absolutely. But when we also, in this journey of me growing up, industry growing up, we've also moved to a place where not all categories work in a similar fashion. And Samir, this question goes for you, right? Because the product that you have is very need-based product, especially when you talk about insurances, right? It's not something that you buy basis legacy, but it's a very tough competition. Plus, only when the need arises when people buy. So my personal feeling is that, it by default goes very performance heavy, that if you're there, people will buy. What's your take when it comes to branding versus performance in a category like yours?
Thanks, Nipi. So let me set some context. Car insurance is a product that is fairly need-based. Yes, people do buy it whenever their insurance is up for renewal because it's a government mandate. But for our core products, which drive a lot of our revenue and profits, term insurance, health insurance, people actually never want to buy it. Like nobody gets up in the morning thinking, "कि आज मुझे insurance खरीदना है." So you have to technically create that need, which is why a lot of our advertising is also category advertising, trying to tell people why term insurance or health insurance is relevant and important in their lives. And when you're talking about tough competition, I would practically say there is dearth of competition. There is a huge scope of gaining market share, revenues, etc. Because let's say for a product like term insurance, the penetration is low single digits, right? So the scope is immense. So there is enough room for everybody to grow. We just need to, create new demand and make the overall pie a lot bigger. That is the competitive landscape and where the category is right now. So your question about performance would be more heavy in your scheme of things, not really. So since we need to create new demand, we can't convincingly tell people why they need insurance through a banner. We actually need to do a lot of audio-visual storytelling with various shades of emotion. Sometimes it's humor, sometimes it's being too straightforward, etc. So we're very, very heavy on brand. And a result of this is that a majority of our traffic and leads and eventually sales come from direct and organic channels, which in a traditionally push category is quite unheard of globally. So we've managed to create a pull for a push category, and we've been able to do that purely through brand.
Right, very well. So, while I heard you, this question popped in my head, which is that journey linear? Is that journey integrated? And how should that balance be? I'll say, okay, there's still an answer. But Mayank, when I talk to you about your category, and of course being market leader, right, then, from somebody who's your competition sitting across the table would say, what kind of problems do you have? You're there in retail, you're acing it. You're there in e-com, you're acing it. Branding perf, you're there. So how do you manage in a world where A, you're market leaders already, and for you, world is not just online, but also retail that comes into gameplay, which gets impacted via your online campaigns. So how do you see a mix and a dynamic dance, I'll say, of branding and performance?
Yeah, so I think the thing which we need to understand here is none of them is a separate ecosystem altogether, be it a brand or be it a performance, right? So like Rajiv rightly said in terms of, okay, I am talking on behalf of a user. Trust me, if I am a user and I am seeing a particular ad, I really don't know whether it's being a performance ad or it's a brand ad, right? It's even from a brand perspective, if I'm using a creative, even it's a brand ecosystem, it still goes with the CTA of buy now or something like this. So that's more of a consumer side of it. But from a brand perspective, if we have to say, are branding and performance separate? No, they are not at all competing with each other. They have to complement and they are not contesting each other. They are interdependent. They complement each other. Definitely brand is something, or the branding campaigns are something which goes over the edge. They do the storytelling, they does the upper funnel, they create that particular aura or that demand, which slowly or suddenly will converts into performance. So do we say it's a linear? No. Do we say it's a zigzag? No. But do they complement each other? Definitely yes. Are they competing? Definitely no. See, what we strategically believe always is like many people says, like you said, in terms of you have changed a push category to a pull category, right? And that somehow will happen. Why? Because if there is a lower SP product, it's an impulse buy. Like you bought socks. Last night I bought coffee. I was just browsing through in that case and there are a hell shit of coffees, strawberry coffee and a blueberry coffee and an XYZ, and I'm a coffee lover. I bought it. But given that, if it's a higher SP, can I buy a car overnight? No. It's just about how the brands keeps on doing. So let the brand keep on doing the strategical work for you over time and again, and let performance does do a strategically targeting or a communication to you within the branding umbrella. So that's why I think they complement each other. They cannot be a separate two. The myth is we say brand separate, performance separate. They are very much interdependent on each other. Yeah.
Again, loved hearing that, but sitting from, another table, which is me and Dhruv all together, I mean, they also seem like briefs to us and challenges to us, where then we have to think aloud. So Dhruv, you heard all of them, right? And coming from Trade Desk, of course, then their solutions becomes your problem, that how to address it more. So when you hear Rajiv talking about that fine balance, that trust has to be there. It's a legacy, that gets old, which is not built in a day. And of course, branding plays a big role along with perf coming into place. Then we heard, from Policy Bazaar that again, it's at Policy Bazaar, it's not just about performance anymore. And where Samir very rightly said that they invest very heavily on branding because that's how, you're playing the dynamics. And when you talk about Vivo as a brand, it's a very tough category to be into, right? From Trade Desk point, how do you see like how tech is playing a role in kind of playing that balance in between for these different categories?
Thank you for the question. Firstly, just a bit about our company. So the Trade Desk is a programmatic platform which enables buyers and advertisers and agencies actually to really invest their money very efficiently and effectively across the open internet. So that's what we stand for. We are unbiased. Just wanted a few people to know about us because we're still new in the country. We're about a 4-year-old brand in the country, but we're launched, like the company started in 2009. So just a bit about us before you start wondering or Googling about us, which you should, by the way. I think just one term, just picking up from what Mayank was saying, back in 2017, we were trying to build a model in my previous company called brandformance, right? And I think that is something today is an apt way to bring that one single word in. It's not about branding, it's not only about performance, it's about finding that intermingle of brandformance. At the Trade Desk, we are very focused on one part which kind of connects the dots on this is omni-channel. So we are also saying to not just be in one platform, so whether it's the big tech platforms like a Google, Meta, Amazon, or just on linear TV, but you need to find a way to be on CTV, display, mobile, out of home, and the consumer is everywhere. What we are also trying to solve for is the ad fatigue. So today, certain platforms, you would potentially see the same ad coming up and again, but how do you make sure that frequency is managed across the open internet, across various other touch points that are there? And again, I think we'll talk more about that later, but data becomes a big part of how you start measuring some of these effective pieces on where is my brand showing, am I measuring something that is just recall, am I measuring something that is action? And if you need to build a company, and these brands, 140 years to maybe the youngest, I don't know how old is Vivo as a brand? There you go, 30 years globally. So one, we don't have the socks brands or the coffee brands in the room, right? They have a very different journey and a very different story to tell. We have brands at the bare minimum, which is 17 years as we were talking in the country. Memory structures are important, right? And hence, today when we think of Jawal Charan Prashan, that Dadaji playing badminton, it's still there in my head. Abhi ka tha na ad? Haan. So just checking ki, yeah, somewhere I think that correlation remains with us, and that's how brands are built. So to me, I think short term, yes, performance is great, but from a long term perspective, you have to go after sustained, consistent building brands. Yeah.
That gets me to you, Rajiv, because when I heard, brand performance and plus memory, two different words altogether. We are talking about a lot of matrix in picture that, let it be an integrated word. It has to be altogether done in a very single view, understandable. But the second point, when I just said, Dabur Chyawanprash, it has nothing to do with any ad that I saw, but a legacy that has been created over a lot of good, great content that I've seen, like in my childhood especially and even now. What do you think matters more when it comes to brand performance or memory, and how to build that in a world which is so cluttered with a lot of content and matrix coming your way?
So, we were discussing about this book by Simon Sinek, right, called Infinite Game. If you're in an infinite game, if you're in for infinite growth and, you are in business for infinite period, then you will build trust and you will build the brands, you will build brand love. And once you have done that, then you don't have to have a communication. You will just remember the brand just like you did, without remembering which communication. And that communication was played in 1982. Probably most of the people weren't born in this room, So memory structures are so strong for those communications. I was a kid back then, not anymore. So I also remember that commercial. But whatever else we have created over the period has reinforced whatever we had communicated earlier, and has built the trust. So it's not one against the other, I would say. You have to build brands to survive for a long period. However, whatever is there in front of you, you can't ignore that. You can't ignore what is coming to you naturally, and your competition is there. Everybody else is advertising, and so once you go there, you would. Once you're there, you're present at that moment. You'll get benefited. I have another story about Chyawanprash. So there's one of the variants called Gud variant, Chyawanprash in a Gud format, right? So one of our competitive brands, they launched a Gud variant and spent about 35 crore rupees on media and advertising for that brand. And we didn't launch in that season because season was ending, and we said, okay, we'll launch it next year. Next year, we launched it and placed it in the market. And later on, when we were doing the maths and we were looking at how much we spent, actually, we didn't spend any money on advertising, So advertising was done by competition, and we were doing all the business on their behalf. And they spent 35 crores, got a business of over 10 crore rupees. We spent zero and did a business of whatever, huge number. I won't tell you the number, but a good number.
Right. And I'm totally with you on this, especially being a girl, right? Everything in our life is all about skin, beauty, all of those things. And I recently figured out that now Chyawanprash comes in a lot of forms, which is not just gold, but Dirgayu Prash, then there's something around pearl, kesar.
Yeah, so I'll tell you. Let me tell this for benefit of everybody. I do a bit of sales. I know biggest salesman is sitting here, Ashish Sehgal, but I'll still try to steal some thunder from him. So so Chyawanprash, there's one regular Chyawanprash which is red in color. There's Chyawanprash Avle special, which is like regular Chyawanprash. It doesn't have too much of sugar. There's one with sugar, one with less sugar, Ayurvedic preparation. Third one is sugar free. It has no sugar. It's like absolutely raw. Then there is a kesar prash, which has kesar in it. Then there are multiple other variants which are for different occasions, and we are launching it in other format, many more formats,
Yeah.
in order to appeal younger people like you, and who would
you.
tell their kids.
Selective listening is what we're doing now. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Now, Mayank, this question comes to you. See, in that category, as I told you, I don't have to see an ad. I mean, what hits me is matcha, what hits me is, kesar, and I'll buy it because thinking I'll get a good skin, maybe it never happens because my other habits are bad. But when we talk about your category, where we are especially talking about Gen Zs, where there's no brand loyalty as of today, right? And these terms never hit them. I mean, they buy what comes their way and where they believe in. So of course, and you being market leader in your category, how do you decode that? Like, how did you, create a space in a landscape, in a category which is so competitive, where there's no brand loyalty, no brand legacy, where these audiences are sticking after? So what is that one theorem that you really, stuck yourself to?
See, one thing I again reiterate in terms of be it a Gen Z or be it a millennial or be it someone, right? What we are holding tight is brand ethos. And the brand ethos for Vivo states for joy. Okay, so why? Because why joy? Because it'll give you a larger horizon to play for a multiple category. In terms of any generation you talk about, there are different joy altogether. A joy for a Gen Z will be different. A joy for a millennial will be different. A Gen Z or a joy for a Gen Alpha will totally be different. So that's give you a larger horizon. Now coming to Gen Z, right, these are the toughest guys too. They have, as you rightly said, they have no loyalty at all. You go and talk about brand, and they don't care a damn about the brand. What they care about is themselves. They are about me. What do you have about me? Does your vibes matches with me? If it's something which you are communicating or your product has something to deal with me means me, not my me community. They are very specific. It's not me as a Gen Z. It's me as Mayank. It's like me as Samir and me as Jimpy. It's like as narrow as it me. So it's like as personal as I can and communicate to you. So what do? You just ride on that particular vibe because even they say me, but they also follow the same language, which is our trend spotting. If there is something trending on Instagram, they are the all community. Even if they say I am alone, but they are with the part of that particular social stuff. So what you need to understand is if there is something, a product, which you can't change because you can't have a product for Mayank separately and for Dimpy separately and for Sami separately or for Rajiv separately. But you can just try to advertise in a way they connect. I'll give a very recent example. Like just 10, 12 odd days back, we launched another product name which was X200 FE, which was a very Gen Z product. Very like they were the times we are doing a 6.8 inches screens. Now we get into a back small phone 6.3 inches screens and all. And that's what the trend was talking about. Now I have a very good product in place, very nice colors, very solid configuration, but I have two options. Either I go and say, here is that screen, small screen, larger battery, good camera, as branding it goes, pretty authentic in nature, but traditional way. Or I go and say, okay, okay, what's trending in the market, and I just connect with it and go after the Gen Zs. And how we cracked it? We were like sitting with Gen Zs and XYZ. We were interviewing them one to one. What do they like? What type of communication they do? And as they were waiting, I said 3 to 4 people watching the song of this Sapphire song of Ed Sheeran. I said, okay, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 12, 15. And by the way, by the time I reached to a YouTube, I saw it's already crossed some 10, 12 million. I said, why not I do just my campaign clubbed with it? So we have the same features, everything. We didn't talk anything. We just went, bought the rights for Ed Sheeran's song on Sapphire. We didn't speak at all about the product USP. We just have our KVs or our film working on in terms of showing features, but nobody's speaking anything. It's just the song, 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 song. And it started trending like anything. So are the Ed Sheeran happening at over 220 million. We are sitting at almost 110 million. Thanks to Ed Sheeran. So the point here is, yes, there is no loyalty, but if you are able to connect to them in terms of, okay, this is what's trending as of now because they want to be in and there is something for you. That's the code, I think. This is for you, for your community and for you specifically. If you are able to convince him that way, that's the only code, I think.
Sorry, but you cannot convince them, A.
We can try.
Yes, you can try hard, but you can never convince them. It's just, I mean, for Gen Z, I feel it's all about their mood, and I honestly really love this thing about them. Strong boundaries, strong moods, all about me. Cool. But, I was reading this report sometime earlier, which is only on Gen Zs in India, and what I could starkingly, notice about that was Gen Zs follow culture codes, and which is not a language of our culture, the way we say our culture is traditional roots, that's not what they follow. For them, culture is equal to cult. And when they say culture is equal to cult, their culture, their authenticity is more about, in a world which is more eco-friendly, in a world which is more environmental safe, in a world which is more, I'll say everything good, where, we may be skipping that part, right? And they're very connected to it. So words like vegan, words like, gluten-free, etc., it really matters to Gen Z, and they really do read about it. And if your brand and if your content does not sit on those lines, that's them me is all about. No matter what, new varieties of products do you bring on the table for them, what kind of campaigns do you do, you don't connect with them. So now this challenge, of course, when I talk to you, Samir, becomes extra more tougher challenge because A, your products don't have any such things. It's a very different category altogether, right? First question, is Gen Zs a part of your category? And if yes, how do you plan or how are you, getting your lines into that audience?
All right, it's a slightly tricky question, so I'll explain how. So our core products in terms of revenue, profitability, etc., are, like I said, health insurance, term insurance, etc. So these people typically buy when they're 28, 30 upwards, when they feel a sense of responsibility, which predominantly happens at 2 milestones. One is when they get married. They feel they're responsible for another soul. And more than that, when they have a child, is when they feel they need to protect their financial future, etc., is when they're in the market to buy health insurance, term insurance, etc. Also, when they see a tragedy happen in their friend circle, family circle, etc., etc. So, like I said, if people are buying health insurance and term insurance from the age of 28, 30 upwards, Gen Z does not really feature into that game, but what is very interesting is that, let's say, people of our generation carry a burden of the understanding of life insurance in a very traditional sense. What that means is that when we started working, our idea of insurance, and especially our parents' idea of insurance, was just buy an LIC policy, you save some money, you get some return, you maybe save some tax, and you get some kind of a life cover. So it was like an all-in-one thing. It was supposed to be a very safe thing to do and a very normal thing to do. Gen Z does not have that burden of understanding of the traditional sense of life insurance. They actually look at insurance in a very, very objective and, you know, they take it at face value. So what they see is what they will judge. So for example, term insurance is something that they find tremendous value in. Because when you tell a Gen Z person that you can get a 1 crore rupee life insurance cover for, let's say, 400-500 rupees per month, it makes sense to them. But if you tell that to somebody, let's say who's 35, 40, 45, they will tell you, वापस कुछ नहीं मिलता है, because they're used to the LIC mindset. So we're actually, our primary and core TG is still millennial upwards, but Gen Z is also taking a lot of interest lately, and we market to them very differently versus how we market to the millennials. In terms of the personal preferences about and the phrases you used about being vegan, gluten-free, etc., we actually don't care a lot about the personal likes and dislikes and preferences, food preferences, entertainment preferences, travel preferences, and all of that, because we actually want to make insurance a part of every household in India. We want to make it very, very democratic, almost as well distributed as maybe an FMCG like Dabur is. So if that is the goal, then you will interact with people who, let's say, for example, might like Bhojpuri movies and might also like Christopher Nolan movies. So there'll be people, you know, across the spectrum. The only thing that we do focus on is the product benefits and what is the relevance of the category in people's lives, which is not going to change, which is going to be constant irrespective of who you are and what age you are, etc.
Thank you, very well said. And I really hope one day India becomes very financially secure, like, you know, it becomes a part of their life, that insurance has to happen. Yeah. Before I come to Dhruv, Rajiv, this question again comes to you because since we're talking about Gen Z, and then before we get into tech part of it, I want to ask you, like Gen Zs and followed by Gen Alpha, we don't have to hard sell them, you know, what traditional roots of, especially eating habits are. Of course, they're very much into outside junk, but at the same time, they understand values of, they're away from medicines. So they understand what traditional roots and medicines are. Like my own nephew, he tells me that, Masi, why don't you have tulsi ka pani whenever I fall sick? It's one simple straight line that he always, you know, uses it because he heard from his nani. So my question to you is that, are you thinking of that audience group at all, which is Gen Zs and Gen Alpha? Because they're already sold when it comes to, you know, your product values. They believe in it. You don't have to make them believe in it. I mean, that gap is not there because maybe they learned it from the nannies and dadis of the house, and which is there. So if you look forward to that audience, so how do you, you know, how do you think of tackling them? And if at all not, why so?
So, you know, what you have to do is that you have to reinvent your products. You have to reinvent your products and make it relevant for the new generation. I'll give you an example of a brand called Hajmola, you know, which basically started with Lavar Bhaskar churn converted into tablets, right? Started like that. And used to be Hajmola, used to be just plain old Hajmola for the longest time. Last about 3-4 years back, after COVID, we launched a few variants for Hajmola. One of them was Hajmola in a cola flavor, and then Hajmola in a limca flavor, and then Hajmola in Anardana flavor, Hajmola in Imli flavor. So these flavorization, and you know, after listening to the consumers, what are the preferences, etc., that really helped. Today, you know, it has almost doubled in last 3 years. The Hajmola brand itself has doubled in last 3 years. This is one brand I'm telling you. Second is brand like Odonil, which was primarily those Odonil blocks which used to be there, called PDCB blocks. Those PDCB blocks got converted to aerosols, a very nice packaging of air freshener, then in the gel format. So different formats which suits different kind of households, different kind of needs. Brand like Chawanprash, you talked about various flavors. There's one more which I missed out in the last conversation, was Khajur Prash, which is directed only towards women. You know, it tastes awesome, really awesome. You know, it's like almost like a sweet dish. You know, so these kind of things which you keep launching, keep innovating in your categories, especially in the oral care category, which is a very dynamic category. Today, almost 99% people in this country use some kind of oral care, toothpaste, tooth powder, etc., etc. So, and there are different layers of uh, consumers which have appeared over the period. Dabur was one of the first ones to launch one Ayurvedic toothpaste called Red Toothpaste. Today, Ayurvedic toothpaste market itself stands for about 20-25% of the total oral care market. Within this market, you try to look at what consumer needs are. You try to do a lot of social listening, etc., etc. And we have launched products in the, say, charcoal category, uh, for sensitivity, etc., etc. Depending on where the market is leading, where what consumers want, you keep launching. That's how you stay in the game. Otherwise, there are brands which miss out over the period because they're not innovated themselves. So innovation is one thing which really keeps you going, and we keep our ears on the ground. We have a Gen Z panel on boarded, which whenever we take a product to them, they tell us this packaging is shitty, and it doesn't talk to me, and whatever is written on the label doesn't appeal to me, etc., etc. And it really comes very shocking to people who are working in R&D because they put heart and souls into the brand, and then they tell you that this product is not okay or the label is not okay. Happens a lot in the juices category. We have expanded our juices category, listening to the market demands and what Gen Z is consuming, especially in, say, taking more share of throat. We used to be juices. We just used to make juices earlier. Now we have expanded into the, like what Lahori Jeera is equivalent of that, called Hajmola Jeera.
Yeah.
Then category into fizzy drinks. It started with jamun drink and something similar to a tonic water, etc., etc. So you keep expanding, listening to the consumers. Otherwise, brands will eventually die down just because you're not innovated.
First of all, very bold of you to have a Gen Z, panel, because I mean their feedbacks are to be taken with a pinch of salt because they're that honest. But at the same time, very impressive that you really went ahead with what consumers demand, and that's the future. I mean, Gen Zs are our next 5-year audiences, right? That's going to be the main audience peak for us. Very impressive. So now, Dhruv, that of course a very heavy question comes to you. So many brands, so many innovations happening. So it's not just digital disruption, but also from a consumer mindset. Brands are evolving, right? So all that weight now comes onto tech to help us do the job because manually, of course, it's just not possible to have so many brands under same umbrella, same brand name, so many different products, and drive a performance and branding campaign, all that manually. So how do you think specifically Trade Desk and all the solutions that you have can help us bring value and efficiency in such a chaotic landscape?
No, no, I think one I didn't know you had just expanded in so many. मैं तो अभी हाजमोला सर का memory structure चल रहा था मेरे सर में. And I think that's post COVID actually we've seen that's disruption, and in fact they were the original house of brands if you think of that, and that term actually came much later. But today it's a real challenge to get to the consumer and to sit somewhere in their brain and the memory structure, right? What we've at Trade Desk at least looked at it now, and maybe I don't know whether you're talking about first party data, but I'll just talk about a bit about that plus identity. We're very focused on bringing more understanding of identity in a privacy safe world that we want to create. At the same time, allowing brands and advertisers and agency partners to really understand what's working with the consumer, when is it working, why is it working, which is going back to my omni-channel part. But, and I'll give you an example of especially this conversation we were having just before on connected TV. Now, connected TV household reaches the child, the mother, the father. The brand might be the fizzy drink, or you want to talk to the Gen Z, but you're actually not talking to them when you're there. Okay, that's our time. Yeah, we got 5 minutes.
We have time.
So what we've been able to develop is how do we get to understand the user who's watching, actually watching that ad in the household by some bit of measurement around location plus devices, and again device IDs become omni, like that available identifier. We're working on that journey to understand the consumer a lot deeper and better, and trying to help brands again understand what's working, what's not, especially with this trust deficit, attention deficit that we are all under. To the point we were discussing, we're not even remembering names these days. But that's real, and it's only going to get worse because the number of brands and the number of SKUs and the number of innovative pieces and the different segments in the country and globally we're trying to cater to are only going to get more diverse. So how do we get to understand our consumers, which is where first party comes in, but also is there an identity trail that we can help build as a tech platform that allows users, brands to actually target them better, understand their behaviors, and then of course hope that in the long term, which is where we're building the brand, they do convert. Because again, I think going back to our question of performance versus brand, today only 5% of your consumers are in market, but there's a 95% you're actually building the brand for. So, and it's very important to continue investing behind understanding the consumer and getting more data around them.
True that, yeah. So in interest of time, since we have been divided by the buzz already, my one question, key question also of this panel today, which is, and that goes to all of you. I would really want to hear from all of you, starting Mayank, okay? When we talk about budgets today, media budgets, because that's only limited no matter how much budget do you have each year, that's never enough. How do you use that in the right manner, which defines your branding versus performance balance? Like how to decode your budgets into branding versus performance?
See, as I said earlier, again, definitely has to be a line between a branding and a performance, but definitely they more are dependent on each other. So again, if I say there is no, in Vivo specifically, we don't do any campaign which is a brand heavy or a brand only or a performance heavy or a performance only. Why? Because any branding campaign in primary or in a secondary phase will lead into performance. Any of the performance campaign cannot deliver if there is no branding. And hence, it's always a mutual campaign which always goes. Yes, there could be a different weightages in a simple campaign depending upon the life cycle of the brand, of the product life cycle, consumer attention or consumer response. Now, there could be a product which is going very good in the market, right? I may not run performance. Why? Because the branding itself is doing wonders for me, right? But then there are product which is being developed now. Now I cannot, because there's an inventory in place, I have to sell it out. Whatever branding I do is not able to connect it to the consumer. Then what's being last for me is to add performance. Now, defining performance is also very important. What is this performance? Is it always about sales? No. It could be a market share, it could be a brand lift, it could be a consideration, it could be a intent. So it depends upon performance also. It's not because what we do is we heavily say performance is sales, last mile conversion. No. If I have a strong, we are Vivo also, we have a strong belief wherever if we are able to bring the brand authenticity in place, the brand longevity in a place, and you do it again and again, performance, sales, intent, consideration will follow. So I think there is not at all a healthy mix in terms of a brand only or a performances, but everywhere there should be a mix. The mix could be depending upon your brand product, your campaign, the responsiveness, and the consumer cycle. If the consumer is accepting your product, keep going with the brand association, right? Come on, keep going with the brand. The performance will follow. In case it's not working out, then definitely it has to be more on performance. Why? Because ultimately we are in a business to sell. We have to generate revenues. We have inventory standing out. So yeah, the objective changes depending upon the consumer life cycle and the product life cycle also. Yeah.
So as I say, it's a dynamic dance for you, always.
Not for me, thanks for by the consumer because
yeah.
the way they behave. And you rightly said there is no formula to it, and neither they have a loyalty towards the brand. I'll be very honestly say because we are like 10 years in the country as of now, and there are big players who have been there for 30, 40 years, and there's a brand loyalty being out there. Let's be very honest. But yes, any brand which comes with something which is more unique, more dynamic, more connecting with a particular consumer, they will switch. Now, should we do branding or should we do performance? You never know. There are a lot of D2C brands coming up who does performance, but performance to a level. Maybe your first 100 crores you make within a year or within 2 years. But after that 100th year, if you have to grow further, till the time your brand awareness is not there, your branding is not there, you're not going to convert. Like you rightly said, in terms of there's a single figures only for term insurance. There's a huge thing to go until unless you generate awareness, which is again branding. So I think that's what it's a call is, yeah.
Makes sense. Sameer, how about you? How do you take that?
See, traditionally, in very commoditized categories, you would see performance being heavy. In categories where you have a distinguished feature or an offering, you would see a brand being a little more heavy, etc. But I think, performance and brand don't need to be mutually exclusive, not just in terms of the way you plan campaigns, but also in terms of the outcome. So I'll tell you how we've been able to consistently spend heavily on brand and a lot more than performance, etc. for so many years is because it has delivered actual, real, measurable results for us on a real-time basis. So for example, one would usually look at a few months horizon to judge the performance of a brand campaign. For us, it's so immediate that if we start a brand campaign on, let's say, a Sunday morning, we actually start seeing results from the evening itself in terms of actual leads coming in and the transactions happening over the next few days. So the number of transactions and the conversion rates, etc., would tell you of the quality of people coming in, which is the highest across all sources, when you look at performance and CRM and other sources as well. So brand A gives us the most amount of business in terms of the quantum of leads coming in, but it also gives us the highest quality business because people who are actually putting in some effort to look up your brand or download your app from the Play Store, etc., their intent is supremely high, which is what is seen in the conversion rates and the sales, etc. also. So in our category, especially when you're looking to make a category, build a category, create new demand, you can only do it through performance, through brand. A performance banner cannot, convince somebody to spend 30K on a product which gives them just an email.
Yeah, true. Over to you, Raji. Very different, different category, but what's your summing?
I think
notes?
very quickly, good branding will lead to good performance.
I'll work on everything here with you guys. So I have no such loyalties, no. But to be honest, we do work largely on the upper and mid funnel as a platform. We don't get into the deeper trenches yet. But yeah, that's pretty much what we had.
Thank you so much to all of you. I personally, sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yes, Batra sir.
My mind on Monday also. I wrote a note for him, didn't send it to him. I want to ask the three people here who are from Sameer, Mayank and Rajiv. See, how it's a revenue leaders forum. It's about revenue, and we've not celebrated this. People like Mr. Sehgal is the chief growth officer. Growth and revenue grow together, right? What are your tips for people in the ad sales business? People who are heading, because if the product is right, suppose you take Google, Meta, automatically sale ho jaye. Matlab, of course, a good salesperson can get you a delta, right? What is your advice? What has changed? Rajiv, you've seen it over the last 3 decades, right? What has changed and where are we headed? Same question to Sameer and Mayank.
I think, from our perspective, I think only the scenario has changed, right? Only the scenario has changed. But for us, how we use the medium is basically we use medium to get to our consumers. So that has remained constant. That's not changed at all. Only the ways of reaching them has been changing and has been evolving over the period. When I started working, there used to be only newspapers. Newspapers were like very big. And there was probably 1 or 2 channels which were there. It was very easy to target. Gradually what happened was that targeting became more and more difficult. There were like many more channels to target. Then Web 2 happened, social came into being, Facebook came along, YouTube came along. Your targeting became more and more difficult. But then what started getting was we started getting back a lot of first party data. We started getting to learn a lot more about consumers, which was not there earlier. We were targeting in mass. We started targeting more directly to the consumers. So that started getting easier to start making more and more lookalikes of the consumers we want to target. So our journey has been more reaching towards the consumers through these mediums.
Rajiv, what I'm saying is when you talk to people in Ashish's team or you meet, what is your advice for them? Of course, the basics of everything remain same.
Yeah.
They'll never change, Morgan Housel's book, same as ever. The more things change, that's absolutely true. But there are people who are winning today in the 30 under.
Yeah,
What do they know? Because they come to you to sell.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
meaning
yeah.
your teams, you. So that's,
Same tip applies for me as well.
So I think, so Ashish has been very kind. I mean, what he does is that he makes things work for us. So one of his earlier colleagues used to tell me about Ashish that Ashish is one person who's a deal maker, So what we need here is that people who are deal makers, people who can get things done for you. Because ultimately, we also have to run our business. They also have to run their business. Where both of us can meet, sit across the table and make a deal and make that deal work for me, right? So it's not transactional so much. It's like more like working together than more than anything else. So what I've seen is that whenever I have grown, Z network has grown, or say Star network has grown. I mean, growth has been mutual growth. It's not that I have grown at the cost of somebody else. So we have to sit across the table, make things work amongst us, and then that's how. I saw Satya somewhere in the crowd today. Satyajit is there somewhere. Yes, I think he just moved from Dainik Bhaskar to Hindustan Times, and it was big move for him. And I called him and I said, congratulations, welcome to this other side, which is to Delhi from Bhopal. And we started working together. So we sat down, we started working together along with them. Newspapers are very important, integral part of business. You can ignore it completely if you want to, right? But there is a ways of working with them. You work along with them. Probably what happens is that the revenue leaders here, they might have to work slightly more harder, getting our time share and trying to work together, but solutions are there. There are immense number of solutions are there which can be worked on.
Thanks. I'll keep it short. So I don't think I can offer any advice to the salespeople here, especially Ashish. These guys are veterans. They know how to sell, and I definitely don't have the skill set that they do. From a client's perspective, what I can definitely say in terms of an ask is that I think it is time we move to a more consultative sales approach. Because usually you see, at least from traditional media companies, it is a one-size-fits-all kind of a solution which is offered to multiple clients, irrespective of what their objectives, etc. are, which I definitely see Z moving towards. I think Ashish has built up a whole new team last time he was telling me about it. So I think, yeah, that's it, because in terms of, sales is not just about making a deal and getting some revenue for your company. Ultimately, you win in the long term if your client wins. That is what guarantees repeat business. So consultative sales, I guess.
Yeah, I think I totally second Sameer's opinion. Why? Because, and honestly speaking, I meet almost 3 to 4 publishers every week. Why? Because not for the briefing session, but I simply put up my problems out there. I am not putting my brief to you because for my brief agency is there and they can go traditionally whatever buy because they do a hell lot of eyes and hands into it. What I put is, here is my problem. You know your platform much better than me, and I know only my problem. You help me out in terms of, okay, how can you sell me this problem? It may not be a definite solution, but I'll never shy away from piloting it. The reason you asked in terms of a Google and a Meta, the biggest thing which they give it is your DIY. If I have to particular cohort, I know, okay, I might say, okay, this is my TG. I want to cut it, dice it like this. The platform at least give me this. But is that actually there, not there? Why? Because there is no unique audience. So hence, at the least, I know, okay, this is whom I want to target to. Hence, I go in that particular platform. But today, if there's a platform which say, okay, and I put it a problem, they say, okay, and trust me, no deal happens at one meeting. It will take some time. Again, as you say, consultancy, right? If you are able to understand my problem, and if you are able to give me the right solution, which will definitely we will try. And if it goes, it's a long relationship. Why? Because there starts the trust, and you start working on those. Yeah. Please, sir.
Unfortunately, due to the paucity of time, we won't be able to take
Just
any
one,
questions.
if it's okay, because he's requesting. Please.
It's a very good question and keynotes. We are out of time. I don't. One line. Okay. Don't you think launching of so many varieties, flavors of a product confuse the consumers and impact sale of original product? Like you said, the Hajmola, the Chyawanprash, these things.
So basically, what happens is that it basically helps the original brand grow much bigger. And if you don't introduce more flavors and expand the category, how will you recruit new consumers? How will you grow? That's the only way to grow. Because, there is certain growth path your main brand has, and that slows down after a period. You're not able to recruit new consumers. So in order to recruit new consumers, you have to listen to them and give them what works for them. So it basically helps the brand. It doesn't slows the main brand down. It helps the main brand and it helps overall business to grow.